Lawrence, Lawrencea Bacon, Bacon. Was born in Plummer, Idaho, northern Idaho,
Idaho?
August 12, 1930. I'm older than dirt.
So you born December 19th,
No, um, August 12.
August 12, 1930.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your family, your parents and your siblings.
Basically, we lived in northern Idaho on a stump ranch we call a little farm. I went through first 8 grades of school there, and then in 1944 we moved to Pullman, Washington. It's a college town, and I went to high school there.
So what is the high school name?
Pullman,
Pullman, P-U.
Llman, Pullman, Washington,
Mm-hmm.
and just high school.
And when did you graduate?
1948.
Mm-hmm.
And I was an only child for a while. I have a sister 16 years or 15 years younger than me, and a brother's 19 years younger than me.
Wow.
So like a big spread there.
So what were you doing after the graduation of high school?
Basically just working different jobs. Mainly I worked on a large wheat farm, registered Hereford ranch for 2 years.
Mm.
And my last harvest there is when I beat it up to Spokane to rejoin the Air Force. I should say rejoin because I signed up after I got out of high school, but I didn't go anywhere.
Oh, you signed up for the Air Force during your high school?
Right after high school, yeah.
Yeah, that's a reserve, right?
No, it just took me. I was put in for a school. I want to be a Air Force airplane mechanic, and so I wanted to be a crew chief on a large aircraft and mechanic. So I signed up after I got out of high school with the Air Force, and the schools are full down in Texas, Wichita Falls, Texas. So I went to work on the farm, and next year they called me and said the school was opening, but there was nothing going on in the world at that time. This is in 1949, basically. So I said I'll put it on hold. So they kept me in the deal. So anyway, in 1950, of course, I was 20 years old and getting nervous because I expected that little brown envelope from the government saying you've been drafted, you know. So as soon as I got through the harvest, I went up right away and joined the Air Force.
When was it? Do you remember the month of you?
It'd be in September
1950?
1950, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you were drafted, right?
No, I didn't.
You enlisted.
I didn't get my notice, but so I want to beat it. I didn't want to be in the ground service, you know, and if there was to go to Korea. So on September 12th of 1950, I was inducted into the Air Force. Basically, I didn't want to go to Korea, and because of the hostility over there. So next year, I was in Korea. So my plan didn't work.
So you knew that there was war going around in
the war
Korea.
already started in Korea. So
Did you know anything about Korea before you joined the military?
no,
You didn't learn anything about Korea during the high school?
no. The thing I didn't want to do, so I didn't want to be a rifleman on the ground, you know, type thing. So I thought the Air Force would be the safer way to go.
So where did you go to receive basic training?
I went to Lackland in San Antonio, Texas, and supposed to be a 13-week.
13 weeks?
13-week basic training. I was there for 6 weeks, and my whole training squad, all 60 of us, was told to pack up because they're gonna send us someplace else. So they sent all of us to Craig Air Force Base in Selma, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a base that was operational, but no airplanes or anything like that. It was a Air Force special base for their University of Montgomery, Alabama. So anyway, they sent us there to help do work, stuff, get it organized, because they're gonna make a pilot training base out of it for fighter jets and whatnot. So that's where I ended up, in beautiful Selma, Alabama. And then in June of 1951, then I was shipped out of San Francisco over to Japan. And a couple days train ride, I've got it on that list there, but the Air Force Base was sent to, and from there I was flown over to Daegu, and that's where I signed up with my wing, the 67th TAC Recon Wing, as they call it.
What is the unit?
67th
67th
Tactical Reconnaissance Wing, or TAC Recon we call it.
Tactical Reconnaissance.
Reconnaissance Wing, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wing, that's a wing, right? Yeah.
and we signed up there, and then because of the push almost off the peninsula, they were over in Korea before, and everybody got out of there however they could.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they did, they went to Suiki on Kyushu in southern Japan, and they organized, tried to gather everybody up there in Suiki.
So the whole unit moved to Japan?
Yeah.
When?
Right after that, during that push, because they said everybody, they get an airplane or a boat or anything, get off of there. They told them to do it. They go to Japan, then we'll gather you up later. So that's what they did. So they picked Suiki down there as a base for the gathering point, and then we basically got organized, and I was assigned to the automotive maintenance squadron.
What?
Automotive maintenance.
Automotive.
Maintenance squadron, motor pools they call it.
Yeah.
And I was they decided I was going to be a parts man, and parts spy man. So I did that, and so
Did you repair the parts or what?
no, just handed out to the mechanics come over, needed a part. If we had it.
So you were in charge of inventory,
in the parts.
logistics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parts man, you're going to call that.
When was that? Where was it? In Korea or
No,
in
it's in
Japan?
Suiki.
In Suiki.
In Japan, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started gathering up supplies of everything we could get a hold of. And so I spent a couple of weeks crating stuff like that, then putting it on a flatbed truck, then driving it down to a port, and then put it on a ship to ship over to Korea, to Incheon.
When was it? Do you remember?
I don't remember the dates. It was in July.
July
Yeah, we went over there in
51?
June, and yeah, went over in June of 51, and did that type of stuff mostly in July. And we got everything done that we had. Then on the 1st of September, we flew over to K-13 or Kimpo Air Force Base, and that's where our base was then over in Korea. They moved everybody over there. And our wing, as I say, was tactical reconnaissance wing. It's our planes were camera ships. There was no guns on them. And our 67th motto was first and last over the target, because when the Army and Marines had a problem over there, they'd call us, and our guys go and photograph it, and then the professional readers would see what the problem was, and then let the artillery or Navy, who was below us in Incheon at that time, do the bombarding of it, I guess you might say.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that was done, then they'd go back and fly over it again, take more pictures, and see whether it was successful or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's basically, did the same thing over there as the parts man. And about the last 6 months I was over there in Korea, I was known as a scrounge.
Scrounge?
Scrounge, yes.
What is that?
was assigned a 6x6 truck, and I'd load it up with extra parts that we have. Then I'd go to other bases, Air Force, Army, Marines, and see what they had that I could use, that I could trade them. So I'd gather.
That was an official mission.
That's what I did besides handing out parts. was
So
trying to
you were
gather-
like a salesman.
Yeah, I college grounds. I'd go out and grab something here. And one thing about Fifth Air Force, we're pretty good about. I went down to Seoul to Fifth Air Force, and I'd take parts back there, ship back and repaired, and then pick up new stuff. And one of the things that was the biggest thing to have in Korea at that time was brake fluid.
Brake fluid.
So the Army and Marines didn't have good supply of it. So Air Force had pretty good supply. Every once in a while I'd get a bunch of it, and I'd take it back, and I'd use that for trading for something that they had that I could use, you know.
So it's a parts related to the vehicle,
Yeah.
not airplane.
Yeah, just vehicles.
Yeah, and you go around any bases and
Yeah.
just exchanging those parts.
What you got I can use, and I'll trade you some brake fluid or whatever, maybe a transmission if I have extras or something like that. And so that worked out real good for everybody. They were glad to see me come.
So you were acting like an independent seller and buyer, and exchange the part that you
Just
have. And
exchange, yeah. We
That-
didn't sell or buy anything. We just exchanged it.
did you do it by yourself, or did you have any
No,
friends?
No, just me.
Just you.
I had two guys that worked for me in the parts tent, and so they did all the mechanical stuff.
But you drove around by yourself.
Yeah.
And that was your official mission by the Air Force.
No, that was by me. I was just trying to help the Air Force out getting parts that we didn't have, and it worked.
So let me clarify. Did your superior ask you to do it, or did you do it by yourself voluntarily without being ordered to do so?
No, I told him that I wanted to. Told the captain who was in charge of the motor vehicle department maintenance, and I'd like to do this. And he said, "Go at it, get what you can," because we were short, several things. So that's fine with him. So
I never heard of that kind of mission.
unofficial type thing, but it worked great. I got stuff that we could use, and the Marines and Army were glad to see me come after a while, because I had stuff that they could use too.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I
Yeah,
never heard of it.
We just all in it together, We got to keep vehicles moving. So,
Okay. So then you might have a lot of experience working with many different people, including Koreans. Did you drove down from Gimpo and to where did you go? And what did you do and how did you do it? And do you have any story to tell us about your experience working with the Koreans or any other?
oh, no, not really. It's just went to a couple of Air Force bases. I could drive, 60 miles away. Suwon, which is lower base.
Suwon.
Air Force base there. In fact, I made a trip down there one time, which neither here nor there. Just had two friends from my hometown high school. One was stationed at the 5th Air Force headquarters in Seoul, and the other was stationed in Suwon. So I drove down and picked up the man in Seoul and drove down to Suwon, and we had lunch and told old stories, and took pictures. So it was in the local paper that the three of us, with our picture in the paper, three Pullman lads meet in Korea, So
So from the Fullman High School?
yeah.
Wow. So how much were you paid at the time? What was your rank and what was actually original specialty?
Well, supply technician is my MOS, as they call it.
Mhm.
And when I got to Craig Field, that's what they assigned to me. I didn't have any choice, but anyway, that's what I did there, and then ever since then, my 4 years I was in supply one place or another. But no, I love to go down to Seoul because 5th Air Force had a real nice facility there, and they had real food. Because we had field kitchen at Kempo, so they had it.
So your main base is Gimpo, but you all go around Suwon, Seoul, and 5th Air Force, and better food there.
Yeah, so I like to go there. But
What was your rank at the time?
at that time, I think I just made second class, airman second, two stripe.
Two stripe.
Yeah.
Second class?
Yeah. When I got overseas, I got first class or third class. Then after I was there about 4 months, I made second class.
How much was your salary?
I don't know. I don't remember it. That's a long time ago.
Was it over 100?
I think so. Well, the last I know was before I came home, I made first class, which is the three stripe in the military
Mm-hmm.
deal. So I came home as airman first class, and so that. But I don't remember what salary was.
How was Korea at the time that you went around different military bases? Did you saw the Korean people, Korean village, how bad all the cities were destroyed, and how was the people? I mean, tell me about those Korean scene that you remember.
So mainly the thing that is like all wars, everything's destroyed. It seemed like now the Fifth Air Force was advised all their people not to destroy that university in Seoul up on a hill because they want to use that for the headquarters. But all the rest of Seoul and all the other towns were just basically annihilated, you know. And like I said, so I got pictures of the city hall and the train station that I took there, and they were damaged. And then, say a couple of years ago, I saw Seoul now, which I wouldn't recognize, you know, a modern building, and the train station and the city hall was redone and added onto. So
When did you go back to Korea? When did you go?
I did go back.
Oh, but you just saw it from the
I got
picture?
yeah.
The
picture.
reborn Korea?
Yeah. There's some Air Force guys got it. My Air Force
Yeah.
got it, and so they emailed it to me. So,
Do you want to go back?
no.
You don't?
Yeah.
You don't want to see?
I have a thing in the bottom of my little book there that it was a great experience. I wouldn't take $1 million for it, but I wouldn't do it again for $1 million either.
So what's the thing that you don't want make you that you don't want to go?
Well, the main thing is, I'm happy to say that the thing is really rebuilt, and I hope everybody's happy. But
Don't you want to see it?
I don't want to. I wouldn't recognize anything. I wouldn't even know where it was at. You know. And saw something here a while back. Another email thing. Incheon was the harbor. You know, that we got our stuff from. And was it 2-3 years ago or longer? They built a whole new city there, brand new.
Oh yeah.
From ground up.
Yep.
And the international airport there is at Incheon. It was at Kimpo for a while.
Right. It's the best international airport in the world now.
Yeah.
The Incheon.
Yeah. So I saw pictures of that and stuff. So
What was the most difficult thing during your service?
I guess I'm a people person. I hate to see people's homes destroyed and their livelihood, you know, no matter where it's at. But that seemed like it was really bad. Of course, it happened through that area several times. You know, they'd go down and they'd be pushed back to and then go down again. That big push, a lot of stuff was really bad for the people because they didn't know where they were at. You know, I mean, who they were.
Have you told yourself that what the hell I am doing here?
In Korea?
Yeah.
No. I'm there because they told me to go. Your service, you do what they tell you to do, you know, so I didn't have a choice. But no, I just hoping I did, through my help, little as it was, that maybe it would help get the war and fighting over, which I left there in 52, and towards 53 they finally did the quote peace agreement, and so I guess it worked to a certain extent.
When did you leave Korea?
Left that in June 52. I got dates here if you want it, but I left there in June of 52 and got on this Navy trip ship to come back to San Francisco, and got hit Treasure Island in San Francisco on the 2nd of July. And they told us that if we'd work with them all night long while they get us out so we could be home by the 4th, and it worked. So I got home back up to Washington on the 4th of July that night. So.
And what did you do after you returned?
Well, I was there just for leave for a while, and then I was transferred to McCory Air Force Base, Seattle, Tacoma.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sent there.
Tacoma?
Tacoma,
Yeah.
And I was transferred there as a bait supply goods specialist. And I liked it there because I had 10 civilians working for me there in my department.
Mm-hmm.
And I was ready to stay there at home, as they used to call it, for the rest of my time. I had about 2 years left to go on my 4-year term service. And of course, things subject to change. I got there in July in Tacoma. In October, they took 60 of us, again, 60 is a nice number, I guess, work for me. They sent 60 of us to California to open up a base down there in Southern California. And it was known as Oxnard Air Force Base. It was an abandoned base. After the war, they shut it down. So the only thing that was on there at that time, basically, that they started was jackrabbits and tumbleweeds. And so they started building there, and we were sent down to open up a base supply. And 60 of us, so. And I say they were building a lot. They had the alert hangars just about done. The mess hall and the base supply was being built. The west walls weren't even in it yet, in the buildings yet. They had one barracks building done out of 10. And so there's a start from scratch deal. And so I ended up staying there till I got out of service on September 12th of 1954.
So you got the same day that you were enlisted, and you were discharged the same day?
Yeah, 4 years. 4-year service. It's.
And then what did you do after the discharge?
I just went back to civilian life, and I stayed in Southern California, and I worked in food products for 10 years. There at Oxnard, my first job I got was a American Crystal Sugar Factory. Worked at a sugar factory, and for 5 years, and then that closed. So I was out of work again. That closed in December of '59, and then I went to work in Ventura because I was living there at that time.
Ventura.
Yeah. And a neighbor got me a job with his company, the lemon processing company. So I did that for 5 years. So I'd say food service for 5 years. And then at that time, during that time I got into my first love, which is being an airplane nut. I got into flying, and I ended up doing that for pretty close to 5 years. General aviation, small planes. I worked for the Cessna distributor in Portland, Oregon for a while. Then I got offered a job in Northern California, San Jose, with a Piper aircraft company there, doing the same thing.
You mean food service?
No, outside parts sales and stuff like that.
Oh.
So like with Portland, when I was up there, my territory was Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and Northern California, and I was issued given.
So almost same thing that you did for Air Force during the Korean War.
The one thing I did with them is I was selling the parts to the dealers and fixed base operators, stuff like that. But that was my territory, so I covered that by plane, and same thing in Northern California.
Very successful businessman, huh?
But well, that business had a lot of ups and downs in it. When the economy was good, everything was fine. But then like I said, when the economy went bad, then the first thing that was tied up was the boat for the companies, you know. Next thing was the airplane was shut down. So I ended up living in California, close to San Francisco International Airport. So I went out there and looked for work, and I found work with Pan American Airways in the cargo department, and I worked for them for 20 years. And then I took early retirement because I could see the writing on the wall that they weren't going to be around much longer. So then I went to work for a private cargo handling company that handled international airlines, and they started up. So their first customer that they had, major customer, was British Airways. So they desperately needed somebody to do what an airplane looked like, so they hired me. And,
You never retire.
So I worked for them for 9 years for that company, and my last year was working was 97, and then I retired in.
I see that there is a real close linkage between what you did in the military during the war and your civilian life.
Yeah.
What is the impact of your military service upon your life?
Well, like the first part was in working in the sugar factory and places like that. I kept all the records on production and shipping, receiving, all that stuff. So it's basically the same thing. Same thing with the lemon company, although I ended up as a plant foreman. So I kind of oversee the operation of the processing of the lemons and storage, you know, creating, boxing them up, shipping out around the world, stuff like that.
So there is a positive impact from
Yeah.
your military service upon your civilian
Yeah.
life. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Why people say that the Korean War has been forgotten? Why is it?
I don't know. I thought it was a bad war.
Why? Why was it bad war? You thought?
Well, it wasn't bad for me. I mean, being in the Air Force, I was issued a rifle and all that kind of stuff, which I carried all the time,
Mhm.
but I never used it.
Mm-hmm.
But I had two friends that I was over there in Korea in the Army, and they had some real rough times over there, you know. So that was the bad thing about it, and happily that they finally, not that I would say I just did some good, but they're still battling each other verbally.
Right.
And it's not relaxed yet, I guess you might say. So I hope it will someday, but
what is the legacy of the Korean War veterans?
Well, I guess the main thing we heard for a long time was called the Forgotten War. When we came home, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't called a war; it was called a police action.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they told us. So that things have, of course, got better. You know, being military and a veteran and all that kind of stuff. There's no down part to it other than a lot of people, I think, same thing happened to the guys in Vietnam. They got a bad name, you know, too, and it's not a fun thing to do. So I feel sorry for the Vietnam men, and I especially, I was telling Dave here that I had great respect for the Marines and the Army guys that I knew. Say I knew two of them over there that had some real bad times and lucky to survive. But that's what you do when you sign on dotted line with the military. Do what they tell you.
So are you proud about your service that
Yeah.
the Korea came out beautifully now?
Yeah, I think so. that our group has a reunion every year somewhere. Last year it was in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
This year before that was Plano, Texas, and Virginia. This year it's in Boston. And so we get together, and there's about between 30 and 35 of us still our age, still able to make it, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm happy about that. And I live here in Sun City, Summerlin, and there's 87 things you can join there to try to keep active and stay happy. And one of the things,
87?
87, they call them charter clubs.
Okay.
And I belonged to the Sun City Security Patrol. I can't say that. Volunteer. Been doing that since 2008. And also I joined the club last year. It's called Military and Friends. So it's all military guys, Air Force, Marines, Navy guys in it. And we just have something about every couple of months just get together and have guest speakers and things like that. So, you know, it's, yeah. I even had a hat made for me for my group.
Yep.
Korea, 1951-52.
Mm-hmm.
So I know. All right. Surprisingly enough, I do a lot of things why people stop us and say, you know, thank you for your service. That
Yeah.
means a lot.
Yeah, the Korean people never forget your came to aid of the people,
Yeah.
and because of your fight, we were able to bring that out.
Yeah. In fact, I just received I forget what they call it now. Received a medal thing from the Korean.
Peace medal,
Uh,
ambassador peace medal.
Yeah, Master Medal just about 2 months ago from Korea. So I get the standard 4 good conduct medal, which is a fallacy.
Yeah, that's the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs.
Yeah, that was and it's a Korean area ribbon and an occupational ribbon, and I had 4 of them. I can't remember what they all are. I don't, but it's glad I did it. Like I say, I wouldn't take $1 million for that 4 years experience, but I wouldn't do it again for $1 million either. But,
Any message that you want to leave to, or any other story that you want to tell audience about your service during the Korean War?
I can't think of anything. It would be I guess this is offbeat. That makes a difference or not, but went overseas on Merchant Marine Victory ship. It was a troop ship, and it took 2 weeks to get from San Francisco to Yokohama, and it was a bad trip all the way. Coming back, came back on a Navy two-sack troop ship.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting, to me, there's part of the story is a friend of a friend, all kind of thing goes on. Met a gentleman there in Northern California, and they ended up getting married. So my wife and I were invited to their house. And I walked in the front door, and here was this ship that I came home on. And come to find out, he was the navigational officer on that ship that I was on when I was on it. And he's a lieutenant commander. And so I give him a bad time because our ship went through the tail end of a typhoon over there. He tried to get the captain to go around it, and blow it so it wouldn't bounce the ship around too much. He said, "No, I think we can outrun it." He didn't. So it was a pretty rough ride there for sure. But anyway, that was just a little interesting sidelight. A small world, I was on the ship with this guy, and I didn't even know him, but I did know him, became a good friend later.
Right. That's.
So,
thank you very much for coming, and thank you for your fight for the Korean nation. And we never forget. And your interview will be uploaded to Korean War Veterans Digital Memorial. It's a website, kwvdm.org. Thank you very much, Lawrence, for your interview, and I really appreciate it for
My
your
pleasure.
fight.